Hi everyone, can y'all hear us?
Yeah, we
Yes.
can hear you.
Yes.
So it's already 7, so I think we can go ahead and kick this off. Hello everyone, welcome to the NCP workshop day 2. We're focusing specifically on creating the report, and I'm just gonna go ahead and let everyone introduce themselves from whoever's presenting. So let me switch the slide here.
All right, so hello everyone, my name is Ashleigh Tierney. I am a senior director on SHPE's research and impact team over our membership. So really looking at focusing on particularly our NCP and report program.
Hi everyone, my name is Sofia and I am the regional student representative for Region 5. Very happy to be here today.
And hello, everyone. My name is Cindy Sanchez. I'm your RVP, and I'm here in support. Mainly Ashleigh and Sofia will be the leads today, and I will be monitoring the chat in case anyone has any questions. We can always either follow up after each topic is discussed or at the very end. So feel free to drop those questions in the Dropbox or in the comment or the chat, and we'll get that addressed.
Awesome. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Right off the bat, we're going to discuss some tips for success on how to do well on the report, how to score really well. So first and foremost, you want to be detailed and concise. So essentially the idea is that you want to provide all of this information that you're going to provide to SHPE National in such a way where it's going to be easy to digest, but it's also specific enough where it's not vague and they can actually understand what you're trying to say. So here we give examples of what you shouldn't do versus what you should do. So starting off with, in the past year, our chapter has held a number of different events. They were all successful in their own right, but it's hard to detail each one's individual success metrics. So that one's really vague. You can't really tell what's going on with the chapter. They didn't really have any metrics, so that's kind of concerning, versus having launched 12 targeted workshops, resulting in a 25% increase in member professional certifications. So that's really good. You can see what they were doing, that they were hosting events, and that they were actually keeping track of those different increases. Next, we have don't start last minute. This is a major piece of advice as someone who's written reports for the check-ins in the past. You really want to make sure that you have enough time to make sure that your report is really complete and that you're adding all of the information that you need to. You do not want to leave any room for error, because you have to keep in mind that these reviewers are looking at a ton of reports, so they can tell when a report was really well thought out and written with a lot of thought and a lot of detail and with time, versus one that was written very last minute. It has a lot of gaps. So just be mindful of that and make sure that you aren't starting the day before, because it does take a lot of time to write. Lastly, we have quantify, quantify, quantify. Obviously, all of us, we are all in STEM. Most of us have an engineering background, so we want to make sure that we're using numbers and data to make our achievements concrete and measurable. And it shows a lot more impact. It gives more impact to what you're saying. So if you say, for example, like, I hosted a lot of events versus I hosted 30 events and we had X number of attendance and we had X number of satisfaction, that is a lot more concrete, and it shows that you really took the time to see how your events were performing and that you just paid a lot of attention to detail. So just be mindful of those things. Let me switch the slide here.
All right, so then looking at the overview of the contents of the report. So we're going to take a deep dive into each of these particular sections, and then also look at some really great examples of each section. But at a quick overview, you'll have a cover page, you'll do some chapter highlights, Member recruitment, member retention, and member success, we label those as new sections. Realistically, if you did this report last year, it's actually the same sections. I've just combined things together. And then we're going to finish out with some support needed. When you look at these slides, I love it. What Sofia has done for us is that number at the bottom is actually the page requirement. So you'll kind of see that reflected as we go through the different sections of the report here.
Awesome. So next we're going to do a section by section overview. So y'all saw the overview that Ashleigh gave and the detail on that. And now we're just going to go through the specifics of each section. So starting off, we have the cover page. You can do the cover page however you want to. It's really up to you. It does not count for any points, but it really is an amazing opportunity to make a great first impression on the report reviewers. You obviously want to start off on the right page, pun intended. And so you can take all of this information and display it in such a way where the reporters can view it in an enjoyable way. So for the different parts within the cover page, you have to cover the title, the chapter contact information, and the links. Diving a little deeper into it. So for the title, you have to include the chapter and report information. So if you look on the right, you can see on the example from SMU. So shout out, I actually designed this cover page. So if y'all need an example or like if y'all need tools or want to know how this was designed, I use Canva. You can use whatever program you want to. But as you can see, you include your chapter name, your region number, the report number. So for this one, it would be report 1 and the year, which would be 2024. And then for the chapter contact information, you include the address, the phone number, and the email. Student chapters, please make sure to include your chapter advisor information. So that includes their email and phone number, which you can see within this specific cover page. And then you also include the links. So your chapter website link, chapter social media and marketing information, and chapter management tool. If y'all don't have a website, don't worry about it. You don't need to include that link. But if you do have a website, please make sure to check the template because SHPE National does have specific requirements on what your website should include. So that information is detailed in the template and you can check that out. Also be sure to include all the chapter social media links as well as the link to the CMT. Major piece of advice, please make sure that your link has the view, anyone can view access because the reviewers want to be able to view your CMT and they won't be able to do it if you don't give them that viewing access. And also be mindful of the fact that this slide has language that's modified to make it all fit into one slide. So even though you have this information, please do make sure to still reference the template because the more specific verbiage is in there. Moving on, we have the chapter highlights. So this section, it's pretty straightforward. It does not count for any points, but if you want to be considered for an award, it is required to fill out this section. This is essentially the section where you as a chapter are advocating for yourself. That's the way that I see it. You're trying to show SHPE National of your amazing accomplishments. And so there's specific requirements for how you have to carry this out. You do have to write it in bullet point format. Figures, tables, and pictures are encouraged, but not required. And then you have to list out 5 key major and or unique accomplishments of significance. Each one has to be 1 bullet point. And it has to be achieved directly from using the CMT. If y'all already set up your CMT, that would be pretty easy to figure out which accomplishments would align with your CMT. Student chapters, you have to highlight the areas that have to do with recruitment, retention, and post-graduation success. Whereas professional chapters, you have to highlight recruitment, retention, and influence in the community, as well as the careers of your SHPE members. SHPE National gave us an amazing hint, and it was to highlight the areas that specifically relate to SHPE's mission and vision. And so they gave us examples of how to accomplish that. I'm not going to get too much into detail there, but a great way to think of it is if you have these accomplishments, how do they align with the larger goal that SHPE is trying to accomplish? And how do you essentially meet that goal? And so there's that. I'm going to go ahead and hand it off to Ashleigh.
Yep, awesome. So with kind of, again, that rework or kind of that condensing of topics. So in prior years, you did kind of all of the plan stuff across all of the topics in one section, the outcomes in one section, the chapters by the number, and then the lessons learned. What I've done and kind of reworked for this year is I took those sections and put them under the topics. So for member recruitment, you're going to talk about the CMT, what you've planned to do, what you did and what you achieved, and then what you learned doing that. And so we're going to dive into each of those topics a little bit further here in a second. But that's kind of that big change. So if you did do it last year, you're going to see that change. So first we'll go over member recruitment. And then the next kind of topic area is going to be member retention. Again, same areas. You're going to cover what you planned to do, what you achieved, and then what you learned in that time frame as well. Maybe. And then you're going to finish with that member success piece. Again, same things. So you're going to look at those planned activities, what you achieved, and as well as what you learned in that 6-month period. Okay, so again, you're going to take your member retention, success, all of those different things. For the planned activities, you're going to give a quick overview of your chapter plan. So that's going to come out of your CMT. Pretty brief, but saying like, here's what we planned to do. Here's what those activities looked like. And here's what we're continuing. Here's what the future looks like. So this whole kind of summary is going to be half a page. What we're really looking for, and you guys asked me in the chat, do you guys score my CMT? We don't score your CMT, but what you're going to see is successful, well done reports are going to refer back to that chapter management tool. That's part of our scoring rubric. And so what you want to do is you're going to say, here's what we planned, and it's okay if you don't do everything you planned. I think we sometimes go into this and say we plan to do a million things, and that's okay. Like, we understand. But what we want to see is saying, maybe in your lessons learned section, hey, we plan to do 20 events, but it didn't happen, and here's why. So helping, just showing that we did plan this, it didn't necessarily happen, and here's what we learned from that. So really with that planning part is we want to see the intentionality. We want to see that you did your SWOT analysis. You thought about what your chapter needs to accomplish and hopes to accomplish. So you do want to be really careful with Alexia. That's a great question. So this is where Sofia's tip to be as concise as possible is going to help you. You do really want to stick to those pages. Now, if you go over by a line, I'm not going to fault you for that. But it's part of that professional challenge where we do have to be really mindful and trying to be, keep into that space. And if you didn't do a report last year, that's fine. You don't necessarily, it's okay if you don't know what I'm referring to. I do think some people have done some before, some haven't. That's okay. The sections are still going to be exactly the same for you as we kind of go through them. What we really, again, in this planned activities, again, is wanting to see that intentionality. What did you hope to accomplish this year? So you're going to take that CMT, your chapter plan, and you're just going to translate that into words, essentially, into that part. So, and again, going into those SHPE pillars. Okay. Yep. So then the obtained outcomes. So this was traditionally called the chapter by the numbers. But what we're really looking for, so that planned part is what did we hope to do? And then the outcomes is what did we accomplish? What did we do? And thinking about this as a STEM perspective, I hope you guys all collected lots of wonderful data that shows how many people attended things, what different aspects, right? And so that's why we don't tell you exactly what numbers to give us. You guys get to look at the data that you've collected and pick out and cherry pick what really highlights the strength of your chapter. And so we're looking for tables, figures, whatever makes the most sense, infographics, we want you guys to help convey that information. I think the avoid using words gets taken in an interesting way sometimes. We do need context for those. And so you'll see when we show you guys some great examples of the chapters that scored really well in this section, you'll see that they'll have a figure and then they'll have some context for this. So we increase retention by 50%. This aligns with our objective 5 from our CMT. So you'll see that they add that context in instead of just blindly just giving me a table, giving me a figure. And, so think about it that way, is that this is the chance for you guys to kind of highlight, show off. And then this one too, again, this is one page. So thinking through and being really intentional about picking what data, what information is going to be really helpful for me to tell my story and show the awesome things that I've done. Because think about, ultimately the goal of the report is not just to show what great things you've done, but it's also a little bit about the awards part, right? And so you do want to be smart about picking the right stuff to show those best parts. So for recruitment, you can look at number of recruiting events, effectiveness recruiting, like how effective they were, social media, whatever you guys did to recruit people, how effective were those? And again, it's okay if they weren't effective, if we talk about those in your lessons learned. So I think that there's no right answer here. We're just trying to see that you gathered some data and that you can intelligently talk about that. So retention is going to look like survey results, attendance results. So thinking about, are you retaining your students in SHIP in your SHIP chapter? And then just thinking about, again, looking and quantifying, last year's chapter, this year's chapter, what have we done? What have we changed? How have we grown? And then member success for our student chapters, that's going to look like talking about post-graduation. So are our students graduating and going into STEM fields? Are students graduating and going to graduate school? What does that next step look like post-graduation? And then professional chapters, that's going to look like how you're engaging with your community and careers as well. So. All right, next page. So lessons learned. So this is also a half page. And so this is going to come down to, again, looking at thinking about it as a whole flow. So when we talk about retention, what did I plan to do? What did we achieve with our outcomes? What did we learn in the long run? And so what did you learn, looking at, again, going back to that SWOT analysis. So that CMT should start out with the SWOT analysis. So taking back some of those things that you showed us, what did you learn along the way? Is it better to give food at the end of a meeting? There's lots of lessons that can be achieved throughout this entire process. And then just being, again, very concise. Half a page, you guys know, is very, very, very short. So thinking through what are the most maybe impactful lessons that you learned in this process. And again, always coming back to those SHIP pillars are great kind of starting points if you're unsure of what to highlight or think about. And so thinking about the value that you provide to your members, the planning and implementation of that value. Again, we're going to look at each of these kind of section parts, good examples of these, and kind of talk through what makes them a good example here in a bit. So thinking about, the resources, the plans, thinking about the evaluation of the value provided. So surveys, like how are you getting those lessons learned? How are you collecting information, and what are you learning from those two is another way. So you don't necessarily have to do all three of those sections. You can, but again, it's a short bit. So be really intentional with what you pick and highlight and kind of those key, most important lessons for recruitment, retainment, and success. All right, and then we're going to end this entire report with support needed. And so I think that for me, this comes back to almost like an overall lesson learned, but really it's a call out for you to reflect as a chapter and say, here's what we need. Even our gold chapters, they have requests. We all need something to take it and continue to be better. So this section doesn't go for points, but you do have to do it to be eligible for the reward. So thinking about what you need for support, and I will say I've seen needs ranging from like community support, dean support, chapter advisor support, internal support, support from SHPE National, SHPE staff, your regional team. It can be whatever kind of support you might need. Do you need more financial support? What does that need? What does that look like for you? Again, being very concise, thinking about that in the SHPE pillar process. Coming back, and so I keep saying this again, that CMT is what you're going to see, the strong chapters, the award-winning chapters. It's very clear that they're coming back and referencing their CMT and applying their lessons learned from that. So I will here, so chapter award. So I will take the chapter award question and I will answer that at the end, just because I didn't include a slide on that, but that's wonderful. So Louis or Jose, please don't let me forget that. Matthew, the website template for chapters. So we don't have a website template right now. That's on my long-term to-do list. I think you mean the stuff that we need to make sure and include on the website. Is that what I'm guessing the question means? Now that I said that out loud. Yes, yeah. So if you look at, sorry, not in the rubric, my mind just went blank. The report template, it's going to be on the report template specifically. And so in the website information, I'll circle back into that here really quick while you ask that, Matthew. And that's a great question. Thank you. So the reason we ask you if you have a chapter website to include that is a lot of times when I can't get a hold of you, I'll Google your chapter website. And sometimes I'll find they're like 6 and 7 years old. And so it's just a reminder of when you include that link for us, make sure that it's up to date as much as possible as well. So, yeah. Awesome. Okay, so before, I always like to do the teacher thing, before we hop into looking at the rubric, does anyone have any questions over those sections we just talked about?
I have a question regarding the template.
Mm-hmm.
So it was mentioned that there is an online template or some sort of template that we can access for the report. Where can I access that?
Yeah, that's great. So as of this year, so if you're on our SHPE website, there's a chapter resources. And as soon as I'm not talking, I will drop that link into our chat. But on our chapter resources, towards the bottom, there's a chapter reporting tab, and every template, every resource, every document you're going to need is readily available on there.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Yes, no, that's a wonderful question. Any other questions before I hop over to the overview and rubric? Thank you, Cindy. Look at her. She's supporting.
I was going to say, here it is.
Awesome. Okay, guys. Well, let's go ahead. We'll hop into the overview and rubric. So in the guidelines, there's the rubric. So I do want to point out, I only pulled this rubric section for like the rubric, sorry, you're going to need to do this for recruitment, retention, and success, but it's again, the sections are the same with those different topics. So you'll see the cover page again is not worth any points, but required. Chapter highlights, same thing. But then when you look at the rubric, so for the planned activities, it's going to be worth 1 or 2 points. So you're seeing for both of them, I like to look at for that planned activity section and why I bolded it. It always has to connect back to that CMT. And so thinking about it in that way, for 1 point, you're going to look at it, it's not as detailed. It does have some information, but not as much information as maybe other peers do. And then when we look at ones that are very detailed, those are going to be getting those 2 points. So looking at the obtained outcomes, again, we're looking at not giving as much information, giving some context, but not a lot of context. And then that 2 points is going to be very comprehensive. The context is going to be very clear, and you're going to be able to very well see what has occurred or what was achieved by the chapter. The lessons learned, you're seeing some lessons learned. It's not as reflective. It's maybe kind of surface level lessons learned. What I'm looking for when I think about like a 2-point lessons learned is like, we serve food, and then like taking it to the next level. Like, what does that lesson really mean? How are we going to implement that? And thinking, a little bit more deeply about that lesson, and how, again, and also relating that back to your SWOT analysis that you already did for your CMT. That lesson learned, did we identify that? How are we going to implement that, change that? So that's going to be those same sections for each part. So the rubric, and the other thing, I get this question each time, the rubric is the same for both reports. It does not change in between them. Report 1 is the first 6 months of the fiscal year. So July 1st to December 31st. And then report 2 will be January 1st through, we do it, I think, through May, just because of the way that the year ends with you guys. Okay. Awesome. So what we've pulled in this section are some award-winning chapters, some of what they did last year. And so I would really love for this, because I've already talked to you for 26 minutes, which is way too long. So we want to make this a little bit more engaging for you guys. So pulling some of these different sections up, and then just seeing if one of you is brave enough to kind of talk about what you think makes it like a gold. These are all gold winning chapters last year. What makes them a gold winning response? So looking at the chapter highlights, I'll give you guys a little bit of time here to read, just pick one of the bullet points and read through it. But think about when you read this, like what jumps out at you that this is like a well-written one. That is, so I'll let you guys do that. And if anyone wants to raise your Zoom hand, if you're ready to talk about one of the bullet points, we'll wait until that happens. Oh, I have my first volunteer, Evelyn. You want to come off mute and tell us which one you want to talk about?
I do. Yeah, so I see the very first sentence has a metric, and it's that they grew their database by over 93%. So even in the first sentence, they have numbers to reflect how much their chapter has grown. And I like, again, emphasis on the first sentence, the very first thing that you know. So I think they clearly communicated how effective their strategy and events were throughout the year.
Awesome. Yeah, absolutely. Is there anything else on here that anyone else notes that they want to call out as that was really well done? Andrea, what would you like to talk about?
I would just say overall they did a really good job at quantifying. Like they use very specific numbers and like percentages to express the significance of their impacts.
Yeah, absolutely. Gabrielle, what do you think?
They also connected it to their CMT goal.
Yes, there you go. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's what I want to capture is that's really where it's like you see the chapters doing well, and that's the chapters that are doing really well are taking it that point. I love the pictures, and I'm a very aesthetic person, but if you're not an aesthetic person, the pictures are not required by any means. They do always warm my heart when I read the reports and I see them, but they're not required by any means. But yeah, that's what you guys are seeing, and I hope you guys see that is it's clear, it's not fluffy, it's very direct. We're seeing numbers, we're seeing impactful numbers, we're seeing significant numbers, and then they even threw in the CMT in there. So thinking about that as you do that chapter highlights section. Then let's go ahead and look at that next example. And thank you guys for participating. So thinking then about that planned section. So here's what we plan to do. Here are again a couple of those examples coming from some award-winning chapters. So if you guys want to take a few minutes, again, if anyone is brave enough to raise hands and kind of talk about what they see that looked really well. And I will say something that I know I have some professional chapters on here and student chapters, is the top one is an example from a professional chapter and the bottom is a student chapter too. So we are seeing there's a little difference, but there really shouldn't be major differences overall when we look at the report structure and what is what's a great report versus an okay report. All right, Alberto, what can you tell us? What jumped out for you that was well done with one of these?
Hello. First of all, can y'all hear me okay?
Absolutely, yep.
Okay, sweet. Yeah, I'm in the coffee shop, so it might be a little loud behind me, but
It's okay.
something that stood out to me on this one was because one, I mean, you can see the metrics that they include, I mean, percentages, and also I was focusing on the first one. I'm representing a professional chapter.
Mhm.
And this is our first year functioning. So this some things that stand out to me from that perspective are how they talk about different tools that they integrated, for example, Linktree, and some of the impacts that had on the chapter. So increasing engagement and getting more people to show up to the events. So those would be the things that stood out to me the most.
Awesome. Yeah, absolutely. And I will say too, so glad that you're here, Alberto. Thank you for joining us. For reference for this chapter in particular, like the 05, those references are their outcomes, their objectives. So they're SMART objectives from their CMT. So they're able to point back and show that intentionality with that kind of shorthand way too. So anyone else have anything that they want to call out for these examples?
Quick question. This is me at South of Shep DFW. Just to clarify, you said both of them are good, or are both of them are average, excellent, or what was
Yeah,
what was?
both of these are excellent. Both of these would just score 2 on the rubric.
Does
Yeah,
it
so-
matter? Go ahead.
No, as I say, so all of the ones I've grabbed tonight were from last year's gold chapter awards.
Okay, got it. Gotcha. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like I interrupted you. Is there a follow-up to that question?
No, I was gonna ask. I know that the first one is referencing back to the chapter management tool,
Yep. Yep.
a spreadsheet, and then the second one definitely that one does not reference directly. So I don't know if, in your perspective, as or whoever's scoring this, does it matter if they reference directly or not compared to the second one? What do you prefer?
I think that if you can, we do want to see that reference there. And they do, and I guess not as a direct way, but like the second one, we surpassed our SMART goal of obtaining 20 members. That would have been on their CMT. So it's a little bit of a finesse. It's not as like quick, like, okay, I see that first sentence was objective 5 for that professional chapter. But realistically, again, like I said, I'm seeing strength in both of these. I think you'll find value as well in chapters who may not have done reports before, but connecting back to that CMT yourself will help the flow of your report. So that's a great question, Miguel. I think you'll find that kind of happy medium. I think it needs to be in there in some way for it to be a well-written section.
No, that helps a lot. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Gracias.
absolutely. Yep. All right, let's go ahead and go to the next topic then.
Ashleigh,
Yeah.
can I kind of jump in here?
Absolutely.
So I know a lot of people have been asking about the CMT, and in talking with many different chapters, there are some chapters that don't like using the CMT because they feel like it's a one size fit all type of solution, and it might not be the best solution for their chapter. What I have recommended to people up until now has been, I would still try to use the CMT, and if anything, modify the CMT to try and fit what it is your chapter needs. I know I did that. I added for the planning tab, it's been a while since I opened it, but for the planning tab, where you have your schedule of events, I know we've kind of substituted some of those columns. We've added additional metrics that have helped us be more successful. This is back when I was the vice president internal, but and we were also rewarded with one of the chapter awards. So don't feel like it is very rigid. Don't feel like you can't go about changing the CMT. You definitely can. But I did find that the SWOT analysis was very helpful in helping us plan what our goals were going to be for the year. So I do want to touch on that. There's no taboo topic here, and I just really want to make it more of a known thing that you can edit the CMT structure.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for bringing that up, Cindy. What I want to say is we put that structure there to be a tool to help you, but it also needs to be a tool that helps you, right? So if that means modifying it to make more sense for your chapter, that's okay. But the kind of the key pieces there, right? Like the SWOT analysis, the setting goals, the making plans based on those goals, that's what we want to see, but it doesn't necessarily have to be exactly how it looks in the CMT by any means. Yeah, thank you so much, Cindy, for bringing that out.
So jumping into that point, so it's good that Cindy mentioned that, because now I'm thinking, like, you know how we quantify hours and time we spent certain events, planning events, general body meetings and stuff. So I'm free to add an extra column there just to help me quantify hours per each event, right? That way I don't have to refer back to something else and then have two documents instead of having that one and bundle all together, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think too, what I would love to learn from you guys at the end of this year is like how you edited it and how you changed it to make it work better for your chapter, because maybe that's a change we need to make overall, right? But it's just a template, it's just a starting place. So whatever it needs to be for your chapter, please do that.
Sweet, good to know. Thank you, appreciate it.
Yes, absolutely. That was a really good question. Okay, I think we're ready for the next section here. Okay, so this is our outcome section. And so again, look at these, read those contexts here. And we'll do just one person on this so we can make sure and give some time for some more questions, the last bit of our presentation here. So whomever wants to raise their hand to talk through what they felt like went well on this. I'd love to hear that. Any other brave souls that want to talk about what they really stands out for them with these sections?
Hello. I think the biggest takeaway for me is just the graphics. I mean, I feel that's the first thing you see when you open up the slide.
Absolutely. And I think why I picked these two examples in particular is like, you don't have to be a Canva master, Sophia. Thank you for your wonderful skills. But like, we can always do old, reliable Excel charts, graphs, like that stuff works too. So whatever like your skill level is, I didn't want to just have the social media one to intimidate people. I want you guys to know that, you know, we're STEM professionals. We want to see that data. It does need to be a well done chart though. You know, if you are doing that, making sure you have data labels, legends, axes, all of those bits and pieces there. And then just that little bit of context that comes with each of them to say what's happening, why is that an impactful, and what's that outcome really mean? All right, let's go ahead then and go to the next section. I had a few more of these like what we did, but I think you guys are kind of getting the flow of this. So I won't keep going with these. We'll share the slide deck out for you guys. And if you guys do want to like connect with me and kind of talk through with any of these questions on some of these examples, I'm more than happy to do that. So we'll go ahead and skip through these and we'll kind of go back to that final lessons learned. So final tips from me. So my tips come from, Sophia's tips that we started with, that comes from a student who, or a chapter member who wrote an award winning. So it's very much the like doing. Yes, I can send a good example of a good CMT. That's a great question on. So Sophia's tips come from like the doing of the report. For my tips, thinking about it, kind of like in that administrative piece, right? So just like Sophia mentioned, we are going to get, hopefully, 200 of these reports in a few weeks. So thinking about it in that way, thinking about, you know, being concise, but thinking about making things easy, making sure that I can review your CMT, that link clicks and it's easy and I can see it. I don't have to request access to review that. So I have hinted, so my first tip for you guys, the most important tip, there is a guidelines document. It is a little wordy at the beginning, but there's some really important stuff in there. You're going to see that mission, the pillars, a lot of really great stuff in there. So if we talked earlier about the pillars and you're like, I've never heard that before, make sure, spend the time, read that guidelines document. It's under the chapter resources that Cindy, don't know where that came from. Cindy shared the link for, but it's also here in this document. My next big thing for you guys, again, I think I've said this a million times, but the successful chapters, the award-winning chapters, are going to link back to their CMT. And that's really only because it shows it's a good process to plan, to be intentional. So it enables us to see kind of that whole process for you guys, right? Like it's not just the here are my numbers, but it's like here's the full picture. Here's the story of why my chapter deserves to be an award winner. And then lastly, as we looked through some of these awards, this was just from a handful of our gold award winners last year. All of these links are live. Check out all of our gold award winners. You're going to see they're all a little bit different. So that's why there's not like a right or wrong. Like Miguel asked me, like, are these both well done? In my mind, yes, they are both well done. So look through them. You might get some good advice. You might learn some good pieces of advice along the way as well. But you'll really see some similarities there. So you'll kind of get that like feel for, okay, if I want to do a report well, here's kind of what that looks like and feels like. So you can kind of see what a well-written report does. So yeah. Awesome. Okay. So we will open back up for any, oh, I did promise to talk about awards. So awards will be, sorry, we will announce, so your awards are going to be based on report 1 and report 2. So we have to do all of that scoring. So chapters that find out if they win awards will find out in August, early August. The way that we did it last year, and I thought it worked well, was I told the chapters, and it was like top secret though for them, so they knew it, but then they weren't supposed to tell anyone. So that is the potential timeline for this year, but I'm hoping for an August notification. Depending on how many reports we get determines how long it will take me and my team to review and compile all of them. Yeah, and the really good examples, they are in our Teams channel. I know that some people have challenges accessing the Teams channel, but they're all the gold reports, the 6 of them are all linked in this this document. So when we share this out with you guys, and I will honestly, if Sophia gives me her blessing, we'll probably put this presentation on our chapter resources as well. And you'll be able to access the links that way too. Any other questions, guys?
I just want to jump in real quick. I am going to be posting a link in 1 second. There you go. This link is to the Region 5 YouTube channel. We did record yesterday and today's sessions. Yesterday's session is already up and running on YouTube. That is the link that I just posted on here. And then shortly after we close this meeting, we'll upload today's recording on the same channel as well. Hopefully, I'm thinking maybe we could also link the slide deck through the YouTube link. Ashleigh, if that's okay, and Sophia.
Absolutely. Oh, 100%. Please share. I'll share this. I'll put this on Teams. I'll put it on our website. I'm going to try to put as many places as possible as well. So
perfect. Yeah. So once I upload today's session on YouTube, I'll also link it via the description box on day 1's video. So they'll both be linked to each other, and yeah, you'll be able to find it all on the Region 5 YouTube page. Any other questions? Back to you, Ashleigh.
Awesome. Yeah. Any questions, reports? I got a check-in question. Anything, awards, national chapter program you guys have for me today? Okay, I have a question for you guys. Oh, someone came off. I heard it.
Yeah, it was me. Hey, Ashleigh. My name is
Hi.
Guadalupe. I'm the president of our SHPE chapter, and unfortunately, we've been having an issue of just like being in communication for our Region 6. So like we haven't received much about the NCP report. So I had to reach out to other like chapter leaders.
Okay.
I only received one document. It's the SHPE 2022 to 24 quarter 2 check-in instructions. And is that like what we need so far? Because I want to because me and my group we're gonna meet tomorrow just to get started, and I want to make sure like we have everything like the the
Yeah.
formats and everything we
Yeah,
needed?
absolutely. So that's a great question. And so please, I'm going to drop my email in here. If you want to reach out to me so I can make sure that you're in all the right places too. Let's do that to make sure that you're getting the right communication. But in the meantime, every single thing that you need is truly on the chapter doc or the chapter resource page. So go to the chapter resource page, go to the bottom, look under chapter reporting, and you're going to see the guidelines, you're going to see the templates, you're going to see everything on there and more, honestly.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Should I post it again, the membership?
It's not a bad idea. Yeah, if you're okay with that.
Here we go.
Thank you.
Mhm.
And going forward too, I do want to encourage you guys, any resource in general will go there. So I will try to let people know when things get put onto there, but if you're ever feeling crazy and want to see if there's something on there, it's not a bad thing just to check out and see what information is on there. All right, I'm gonna pull that up actually and share my screen, if that's okay.
Should be.
Okay, there we go. Okay, so it is, are we seeing my screen? Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So it's gonna be all the way at the bottom of the important links section under chapter reporting. So this is where that guidelines document is, the chapter management tool template, and then that chapter report template that we just kind of walked through. So remember, your chapter report is actually going to be submitted in the chapter check-in. So when you go into your Q2 chapter check-in, the very last question asks for that link for your report. So now I can't see questions. Any other questions for me? How's ship life? Busy, crazy, wonderful. Guidelines for the chapter websites. So the guidelines for the chapter website is going to be in the report template. So when you look here, when you download it, once we get it there, slowly but surely my computer will open. When you do, so you'll want to read through the first page, kind of gives you instructions. But when you look at the cover page, it does give you, if you have your website, here's the information that we would like for you to have. Yeah, absolutely, Gabrielle.
Something I would like to emphasize, I remember I went to a chapter report workshop of sorts held by SHPE National last year. And something they emphasize that I think is important that all of you know is to adhere to not only the structure, but also the font and everything that is currently used in the template. Don't adjust the margins, don't try to get smart with it. Keep it at where it's at, because they will be able to tell from the amount of reports that they're looking at if something was messed with. So you do not want to mess with that. So if you have a lot of information and you want to touch on all of it, engineer your way through figuring out how you can present that information in such a way where the reviewers will be able to be impacted by the information that you're trying to share. But yeah, just keep in mind that you really want to adhere to what's in the template, because you don't want to break the rules. So just letting y'all know.
Yes, good call out, Sophia. Thank you. Any other questions, guys? These have all been so good.
I want to, I guess, confirm something with you, Ashleigh. I I always operated under the impression that like I could add links throughout the report. So if I'm linking back to the CMT, if I'm linking back to my website, I could just mention that, for more graphics or more information, check out the website, the specific, and then include the link, etc. And I feel like that is a good use, especially if you have a lot that you want to talk about, that could help save space and not have you repeat the exact same information that you could find on one of the links that are already included in your report, right? I think that's important to note.
Yep.
Is that way you free up that space for something else that is not necessarily covered anywhere else. Like on the links.
Yeah, I will say like you don't want to be like CMT planned activities and just like link your CMT and be like, oh, you'll read that. But like, yeah, that's a really good call, especially if you're talking about like how your website has done something in particular, or yeah, that is a little bit of a loophole there. Again, just being really, really careful. So like what I find is that sometimes when people link things and it's a lot of times the CMT, I can't access it and I have to request access for it. So what I really encourage you guys to do is like another tip is go into incognito mode and check your links that you as an outside person can access your stuff that you're linking into your reports in particular. Please.
Kind of touching on what Cindy just mentioned, back in the deck, Ashleigh showed an example of what SHIP SMU did for, I believe it was the recruitment strategy, and there was an infographic linked in there. I wrote the report and I know that I wanted to share a lot about what went into the marketing strategy. So obviously I knew that I couldn't share all of that information within what I was writing in the report. So I made an infographic in there so the reviewer could look at that if they wanted to look at it. But yeah, like what Cindy said, what Ashleigh said, there are ways to work around it and make sure that if there's important information that you want to cover, but that's not 100% important for the report, there's ways to include it.
Yeah, I would say you just don't want to go crazy with it. Again, thinking of that fact that, how many reports that we're doing, you don't want it to be your 8-page report and then there's 25 links that I need to get into to really like fully grasp what you're trying to tell me. So yeah, that's a good call out. Okay, I think we have time for one last question if anyone wants to end our evening together. Okay. Well, my email is in the chat. Don't hesitate to reach out to me. As we go, thank you guys so much for joining us tonight. I hope this is an information along the way that you've started your report. But that's if you haven't, there's still lots of time for that to get done. So good luck as you guys work through those last bits and pieces. I also encourage you guys lean on your regional leaders, lean on me as you guys get through these. But you guys will do this. This has been so great. I am excited. I see 25 people at one point in time. So that means I'm going to have 23 gold, at least 23 gold chapter reports to read here in a few weeks. So thank you guys so much for joining us. We hope to see you soon. See you soon.
Thank you so much.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah, have a good one. Thank you very much. Yeah, did a great job.
Thank you. I'll say thank you on behalf of all three. I did the least amount of work.